Hello, juniors. This is Mr. Pham, and I'm making a video on basic tips for the ACT Science. Next week, you are taking the ACT. That would be Tuesday, February 23rd. And there are some strategies that you can use to boost your scores. For some of you, you've already taken the ACT, while others, you've never done an ACT before. In my classes, I've done some practice problems with the ACT, but next week you're going to do the actual thing. But there are just 5 strategies that you can use to increase your scores, and I wanted to present them to you today. This will be a very quick video, quick being a relative term. But first of all, ignore the direction about reading the directions. In fact, ignore the passages. I'm just talking about the science portion again. But for science, you don't have to read the passage or look at the graphs the moment you start. In fact, your first tip should be go directly to the questions. The questions will typically tell you where to go for your answer. And most of the questions, they tell you that. They'll say, for example, go to figure 3. Well, you wouldn't go to figure 1 or 2. You would absolutely go to 3. You would definitely not go back to the passage, which every ACT passage, ACT questions has a passage. You don't need to read that unless there's something specifically mentioned in a question to tell you to go there. So go directly to the question, because the question's going to tell you go to here, go to figure 2, go to graph 1, go to table 3. They will always, or most of the time, will tell you where to go. So don't waste time reading the passage. Now, once you have to go there, you need to look over the graph or the chart and kind of figure out what they're looking for. But once again, the questions pretty much give you indicators of where to go. For example, on number 7, you need to look at present day CO2 concentration, and you're looking at percent of urushiol, which we'll talk about pronouncing things later. But they will tell you most likely where to go. It'll save you some time. Tip number 2, I cannot tell you the number of times that I have proctored a test and I see students wasting time 2-3 minutes on one question, and they're going directly in order. That's a time killer. The ACT science portion gives you 35 minutes to answer 40 questions. It is the shortest test of the 4. Science is also the last test, but you have 40 questions, 35 minutes. So you can't spend 2 or 3 minutes on the question. The way that the ACT is set up is that there are going to be easy questions, medium type questions, and then really, really hard questions. My suggestion to any student is never waste time on hard questions. If you read a question and it's not telling you where to go, or there's so many words and the answers in that question are so big, that's more than likely a question that you can answer later, or it may be a never question. You should break your questions down into 3 groups. You should break them into nows, which means you can answer them right now because the answers are, it's pretty easy to find it. A later is going to take you a little more time, and then a never is something that you shouldn't waste your time on. It's those questions that are huge, that have large answers, or you have to read through a large passage to find the answer. My suggestion is, if you can't figure out what the question is saying within the first 15 seconds of reading it, that's probably a later or a never question. The way the ACT is scored is that you are given points for the questions that you get right. You're never penalized for answering questions wrong. So if you're wasting 3 or 4 minutes on a hard question, that leaves you less time to answer all the easier questions, which will get you points. And I think the distribution is maybe 40, 50 easy questions, and then 40 medium questions, and then some really, really hard ones. Should be just a couple. So don't waste your time on those. Those will really hurt your score. Classify them as now, laters, or nevers. The laters you can answer once you've answered all the easy ones, and the never ones are the ones that you just guess. So don't waste your time on those hard ones. I can't tell you the number of times where I've walked by students as I proctored, because I'm supposed to monitor what they're doing, and there's 5 minutes left, and some students haven't even answered half the questions. Think of all those easy questions that they're missing. that could have given them points. So don't waste your time on the hard questions. Skip them. Make sure that you make a note of that on your, don't note anything on your answer document, but make sure you know, like if you skip number 7 and you go to number 8, make sure on your answer document you leave no answer for number 7 and then answer number 8. Don't fill in the wrong bubbles. And number 3, the science portion is going to throw all kinds of big, weird words at you. Don't get hung up on the big words. Never try to pronounce them. Never try to remember them. For example, there's no reason that you need to be able to say the word pancreatic adenocarcinoma. It's not important. Or gamma aminobutyric acid, or my favorite one, isobucona sodium sulfate. I can't even say that. Call it the I word. Call it the G word. Call it the P word. If you're lucky, there's one on there, and then you just called it the F word. But don't get hung up on trying to say those words. I can't tell you the number of times that when I took the ACT, I was like, I would try to say that word over and over again, but it's like, that's not important. You don't need to know that word. Call it the I word. Anytime they refer to it in a question, call it the I word. Don't waste your time on that. That's mental energy. Number 4, look for trends or patterns in your graphs and tables. A lot of times science is looking for connections between one variable and another variable. And for my students, you should know that the independent variable is the thing that we, or I, the scientist, changes, and the dependent variable is the thing that may or may not change based upon that change that you just made. So if I change this, I'm hoping that it's going to affect the other thing. And if I can change it and see a change, and then change it, like maybe make more of a change and see even more of a change over here, that is a pattern or a trend. So you can look at this question, which asks you in site A, the O3 concentration at 4 or 5, was the higher O3 concentration higher at 4 or 5. So they're telling me to go to site A, which is right there, and it's this line here, and they're telling me to look at times 4 and 5. So there's 4 go up. That's an I3 concentration of 1.5. I go to 530, and that is an I concentration of 2.5. So this looks like a trend from 4 to 530. And then when I go over here to this graph, it shows me that if I have an I3 concentration of, let's see, that's 1.5. I go over here, here's O3 concentration, and then this is I3, 1.5 is here. Well, I can see on this table or this graph immediately that there's a trend that as O3 concentration increases, I3 concentration also increases. So this is what we call it's a linear relationship. It's what we call a proportional relationship as well, where as I increase one, the other thing increases. And so I can see that increasing the I3 concentration or the O3 concentration has effect on the I3 as both goes up. So then I would go through here and I would look for that answer. So look for patterns or trends that will typically tell you that if something's increasing, then something else is probably increasing. Or if something is decreasing, maybe something's decreasing. And then there's also what we call the inversely proportional relationship, where as I increase one, maybe another thing decreases. And if it's a trend, that a pattern that holds, then you'll be able to see that on the graph or the table or chart. So look for patterns or trends. And the last one, if you have to guess, and you should guess if you're about to run out of time, is always guess the same spot. Don't hop around. Don't be a bubble hopper. Bubble hopping is the worst. The way the ACT sets this up is that there should be roughly 25% of the answers in any given test should be in the first position. Now, the way that they letter the answer choices is A, B, C, D, and then on the next one, it's all these the even questions, they go F, G, H, J. So every odd will be A, B, C, D. Every even will be these letters. And this is what we call the first position, A or F. Second position is B or G, then C or H, and then finally D, J. And they tried to make it to where 25% of your answers should be in the first, 25% should be in the second position, and so on. So if you have to guess at the end, you might have 8 or 10 questions that you have to guess at. Always guess the same position. Hopping around decreases your chances of getting that right. So you need to make a mental note. Which position am I going to pick? Am I going to AF it? Am I going to BG or CH or DJ? Whichever one's easiest for you, pick that one and always guess that spot. Something that I was always told is always guess C. Okay, well, if I'm going to guess C, I'm going to CH it. There's something that you can do if you're fairly certain that your answers, like all the easy ones you answered, were correct, and you see that there's more in the first position that you've selected, but there's fewer in the fourth position, then go ahead and answer all the remaining questions as DJs, as that is the last question. Let's answer choice that you should pick, and then just DJ everything at the very end. So that's all I got for test taking tips for the ACT. I hope to post something else, maybe not a video, but something to definitely help you out. Hope you guys are enjoying your snow days, and I'll see you maybe Monday. All right, bye.